Your orders were to kill that sniper.
Stuff my orders. I only kill professionals. I've goaded no one end of a rifle from the other. Go ahead, tell him what you want. If he fires me, I'll thank him for it. Whoever she was must have scared the living daylights out of her.
1987 would mark the 25th anniversary of 007 on the big screen, and Timothy Dalton, who could be argued was the best dramatic actor to play the role at this point, would star in the 15th Bond film, The Living Daylights. The script for the film was being written when it was thought Roger Moore could be lured back for one final film. When it was clear Dalton was going to be the new Bond, the dialogue was modified to match his new Bond's interpretation. Any humorous references of Moore's Bond would be eliminated, and a shift was made to a more darker and hard-edged Bond. Timothy Dalton's seriousness towards playing the role was evident quickly. In preparation, he read all the Ian Fleming novels. On set, it was said he consistently referenced back to them. He was determined to present an interpretation of the character close to Ian Fleming's original creation. Those who read all the Bond novels could pipe in whether they think Dalton's Bond is the closest to the character from them. I remember reading Desmond Llewellyn saying he thought Dalton's performance succeeds as being the closest to the Bond character. I realized something that might work on the page might not work if translated literally to the screen. But setting aside that comparison and judging Dalton solely on his film performance, I think he's great. The opening is a 00 exercise on Gibraltar, with 3 00 agents skydiving in. The use of paintball guns for the training exercise was something relatively new at the time. The 2 00 agents sort of resemble Roger Moore and George Lazenby. This was sort of a fun way to play with the audience expectations as to what Bond should look like. Dalton isn't introduced until a dramatic zoom and then he jumps into action. The opening sequence is pretty cool, very fast-paced and well put together. As Dalton is fighting the assassin, it's much more a violent fight with a lot of struggling and a headbutt. I don't think Moore ever did one of those. The fire in the back amps up the tension before the truck goes over a cliff. Dalton smoothly slips out, lands on a boat with a hot babe, and makes his formal introduction. It's a pretty cool opening for him. What follows is a story that is more of a real suspense spy thriller than the series had seen in a long time. Set in a real Cold War setting with believable characters and schemes, it really brought the series back down to reality. Something that was once again vowed by filmmakers, with Dalton playing Bond as a brooding, methodical assassin. His performance really invigorates the series with a change that is refreshing and welcomed. Bond is assigned to kill a sniper who is supposedly targeting General Koskov, a Russian general intent on defecting to the West. During intermission at an orchestra concert, Bond spots the sniper, who is oddly the pretty cellist he noticed playing in the concert earlier. He gets suspicious and intentionally avoids killing her by only shooting the rifle out of her hands. A unique escape plan allows Koskov to escape to the West. At a briefing, Koskov explains there's a KGB plot to kill spies by orders of General Pushkin. This is before the compound is infiltrated by a KGB agent, Nekros, who kidnaps Koskov and escapes with him. Nekros is a classic Bond henchman, maybe a bit too classic to the point of being bland. One of his signature tools for killing is his headphone wire from his Walkman, which is unique and just believable enough to fit into this Bond world that's being presented. But other than being a big, strong, blonde-haired bad guy, you know when you see a big, strong, blonde-haired guy in a Bond film, he's going to be a bad guy. There's not much else to him. His fight in the kitchen with an MI6 agent is pretty brutal and really reinforces the fact that this film is not going to be joking around. Once that scene concludes, you know Bond will eventually be facing this guy. The way he gets into the compound and uses explosive milk bottles, again, is not that unbelievable. I think the weakest thing to the whole film are the villains. Jerome Crabbe as Koskov feels too light a villain. He gives a very relaxed performance as him. It's a different take than the speak slow and stare with dramatic pauses Bond villain cliché. Maybe it would have worked better in a Moore film, but here with the more serious tone the film has, he just seems less threatening than he should be. He consistently is hugging and kissing everyone. Even towards the end, when the realization that he's been playing Bond, he seems way too friendly. Joe Don Baker, who plays Brad Whitaker, an arms dealer obsessed with the military and was expelled from West Point, isn't as memorable a presence in the film than I think he should have been. Baker does a fine job, but he just lacks screen time. Such a character should leave his presence imprinted on the story, even when he's off screen. But I think that his lack of screen time is a detriment. If the scenes he appeared in were more memorable and he was given more to do with them, besides bark a few orders and explain what is happening, I think it would have helped make his character more memorable. His collection of military leaders with his face on them is a fun little detail, though. The big thing at the time was how this time Bond was going to have only one girl. This was to be a first. While some might have thought this was sacrilege, it really fits in with the story, which I think is the most important thing. As Bond poses as Koskov's friend, hoping Kara will lead him to him, he focuses solely on her. This allows them to develop their relationship more naturally and have some very nice scenes together. It would have felt much more forced if Bond was running between her and a bunch of other babes. While I have no problem with Bond having one leading lady, the trick is to make her interesting enough that she warrants all the time we're going to spend with her. It makes us want to learn more about her. And Mariam Diabo's Kara accomplishes it. She's not a tough Bond girl, but her sensitivity and angelic nature is something unique to the series. She does seem a bit too naive at times. I mean, her innocence starts to stretch on me when she can just pick up the phone and call Whitaker, this huge international arms dealer, but still has no inkling what this guy is about. She just thinks he's a patron of the arts. But hey, okay. Her innocence and Bond's darkness mesh pretty well together, and Dalton and Diabo have some chemistry. Ironically, when she was cast, it was still believed her leading man was going to be Brosnan. During the second half of the film, when Kara gets more aggressive, it's kind of fun. It looks silly when I see the scenes by themselves, but Bond in his tux riding a roller coaster and having fun in a bumper car looks somewhat ridiculous when I really think about it. But watching it in the film, it really sells me on it and makes it seem as ordinary as anything. But I mean, really, what else would James Bond wear to a carnival anyway?
Assassination methods, strangulation with hands or thighs.
Why, James, she's just your type.
Doesn't that description of the assassin sound somewhat similar to Xena Onatopp? The character of Miss Moneypenny shows up played by Carolyn Bliss, the only actress to play Moneypenny with glasses. Little useless trivia there. She looks nice, and Bond and her trade a few quick lines. Desmond Llewellyn's Q naturally returns. Other than a few throwaway gags in the workshop of some more unique gadgets his team are working on, this time out the ones he supplies to Bond are less fantastical than in previous outings. Bond gets his new Aston Martin, along with a keychain that's again seems closer to reality than the usual stuff. Bond's car is equipped with optional extras, but it's nowhere near as outlandish as the cars in recent films. I mean, this one isn't turning into a submarine, and when it finally gets used, it results in a pretty cool chase. Despite the return of the Aston Martin, Bond and Kara are ultimately saved by her cello case. Simple, creative, and kind of fun.
What happened?
Salt corrosion.
I think this is the one area where Dalton showed his weakness with playing Bond. The funny quips. There are a few thrown in, and although they're quick, he's not as convincing playing them off as he is when he's saying he's gonna kill someone. They feel more like they're put in there because of expectations rather than his Bond would simply be saying them. But there are only a few, and they go by pretty fast. There was one scene shot that really echoed Roger Moore's Bond. As Bond is running from rooftop to rooftop in Tangiers trying to escape the police, he throws a rug over some wires and makes his way to the street in what looks like a flying carpet. Luckily, the scene was cut.